Bihar. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribaradhare. Gopi Jana Vallabha Giribaradhare. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamunatira Vanachare. Yamunatira Vanachare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihare. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivrajacharyas Tadasasi Samad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Shri Isopanisad Ki Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Ki Shri Giri Govardhan Ki Sankirtan Yagya Ki Go Premanande. All glories to their Somo devotees. All glories to their Somo devotees. All glories to their Somo devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Devotees, we are reading from Sri Isopanisad. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And I think this is the beginning, am I right? Is this the first time? Yeah. It would be good sometime to go through the introduction, actually, because it's very interesting. But anyway, we will today read the invocation. It's a verse, a Sanskrit verse. Actually, it's a very famous Sanskrit verse. But it's not exactly part of the text. It is, it's an invocation. Basically setting the scene, you could say, establishing, like the underlying theme, which is there throughout. Invocation, invoking. Yeah. It's kind of related to a blessing, really, but it's stronger than a blessing. Yeah. So invoking auspiciousness like that and leading us into the text. Right. So here we go. It's very interesting. Isopanissad's very interesting. It is the first of the Upanishads. Upanishads, without getting into too many complications and things, Upanishads are part of or connected with the 4 Vedas. You can say part of, you can say connected with. Different groups have different perspectives, but we would take it that the Upanishads are part of the 4 Vedas, in that the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur, Atharva Vedas, each Veda is made up of a number of groups, and I mean really quite a number of groups, of 4 types of literatures, actually. Not just verses, but like here, this is 15 or 16, whatever it is, some number of verses, Isopanisad. Some of them are more. So the 4 Vedas, each Veda, the sort of fundamental text is called a Samhita, fundamental text. And that text will generally be describing some sort of goal which can be achieved by performing a certain type of, generally a sacrifice, some sort of sacrifice or religious activity that's described, or more than anything, the goal of it, where you can go. And then the second one is called a Brahmana. It's a type of literature. The Brahmana is explaining the sacrifice or the religious activity to achieve what is described in the Samhita. Then there's an Aranyaka, which gives more detailed description of that particular religious function for achieving the goal described in the Samhita. And then the 4th is the Upanishad. And the Upanishad gives normally the philosophical import, meaning of all of these things. So that's how the 4 Vedas are structured: Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, Upanishad. So they're all, our perspective is that they're all together as a unit, as units. Some say that, like the Upanishads particularly, that they are later creations, but we don't accept that. So anyway, we hear about the 108 Upanishads. I imagine, if you've read Prabhupada's books a bit at least, you would have come across reference to the 108 Upanishads. Actually, there's thousands of Upanishads, but there's 108 prominent ones. Yeah. So Isopanisad is the first. It is the very first. The Isha Upanishad. Isha means the Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Upanishad, which is explaining about the Supreme Lord. And I'll read this verse. I don't think you have sheets or anything, but I'll just read the verse and then we'll carry on. So, like I said, famous verse. It is really famous. Om Purnam Ada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. And the translation, I won't go through the word for word, but just the translation. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself, because he is the complete whole. Even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. I think you've heard this verse before, haven't you? I mean, just even in general Hinduism, it's well known. It's very well known. So sometimes, I know if you noticed, you may well have noticed that the word complete was repeated a number of times. Sometimes we call this the complete verse because the word complete appears in it 8 times in one verse. You know, it's only, what is it? It's two sentences. That's quite an achievement, isn't it? Without it really appearing redundant or just repetitive. But it's all very essential and meaningful. Yes, okay. And of course, Srila Prabhupada gives a purport, and actually it's a pretty extensive purport. Let's just see. I think it'd be a good idea to read the purport. The purports of just about all the other verses are so long. If you read the purport to one verse, it'll take pretty much about the amount of time that you have for the class. But this is, it's not short, but it's sort of manageable, I would say. So here we go, let's read the purport. The complete whole, or the supreme absolute truth, is the complete personality of Godhead. Realization of impersonal Brahman or of Paramatma, the Supersoul, is incomplete realization of the absolute complete. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Satchitananda Vigraha. That's quoted from Brahma Samhita chapter 5, verse 1. Realization of impersonal Brahman is realization of his Sat feature. Sat means eternity, eternal or eternity. Yes. Or his aspect of eternity. And Paramatma realization is realization of his Sat and Chit features. Eternity and Chit means knowledge, or even in a broader sense, just like consciousness, awareness, which of course is sort of encapsulated in different types of knowledge, knowing about different things. So the Supersoul is Sat and Chit, his aspects of eternity and knowledge. But realization of the personality of Godhead is realization of all the transcendental features, Sat, Chit, and Ananda, bliss. When one realizes the Supreme Person, he realizes these aspects of the Absolute Truth in their completeness. Vigraha means form. Thus the complete whole is not formless. If he were formless, or if he were less than his creation in any other way, he could not be complete. The complete whole must contain everything, both within and beyond our experience, otherwise he cannot be complete. The complete whole, the personality of Godhead, has immense potencies, all of which are as complete as he is. Thus, this phenomenal world is also complete in itself. The 24 elements of which this material universe is a temporary manifestation are arranged to produce everything necessary for the maintenance and subsistence of this universe. No other unit in the universe need make an extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe. The universe functions on its own time scale, which is fixed by the energy of the complete whole. And when that schedule is completed, this temporary manifestation will be annihilated by the complete arrangement of the complete whole. All facilities are given to the small, complete units, namely the living beings, that's us, to enable them to realize the complete whole. All forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of the living being, and it is obtained after evolving through 8,400,000 species of life in the cycle of birth and death. If, in this human life of full consciousness, the living entity does not realize his completeness in relation to the complete whole, Prabhupada missed out an opportunity to use the word complete again. Could have said, if in this human life of complete consciousness. Anyway, that's okay. So, right. So if we don't realize our completeness in relation to the complete whole, he loses the chance to realize his completeness and is again put into the evolutionary cycle by the law of material nature. Because we do not know that there is a complete arrangement in nature for our maintenance, we make efforts to utilize the resources of nature to create a so-called complete life of sense enjoyment. Because the living entity cannot enjoy the life of the senses without being dovetailed with the complete whole, the misleading life of sense enjoyment is illusion. The hand of a body is a complete unit, only as long as it's attached to the complete body. When the hand is severed from the body, it may appear like a hand, but it actually has none of the potencies of a hand. Similarly, living beings are part and parcel of the complete whole, and if they're severed from the complete whole, the illusory representation of completeness cannot fully satisfy them. The completeness of human life can be realized only when one engages in the service of the complete whole. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they're dovetailed with the complete whole. When everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels also become complete in themselves. Whew. That's amazing, isn't it? That is amazing. So let me read the verse again. Om Purna Mada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamodachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete. And because he's completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nera Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadesh Tarane Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Right, so let's just go through this then. we'll try and cover the complete purport. Just one little point I'll note is, and it's an interesting, I mean, you could say it's an important point. It's not that important, ultimately for our becoming Krishna conscious, because, there are other things which are much more important, like chanting Hare Krishna. But you will have noticed that this verse begins with Om, as does the little mantra, or it's a sutra really, which we chant. We already chanted this morning, and we always chant before we give a class on Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So the Om is used in Vedic mantras. Vedic means from the 4 Vedas, and we call them corollaries, like we mentioned the Brahmanas and so on. So when in a strictly Vedic sense, before you chant Hare Krishna, you chant Om. We don't, because we're not following exactly the 4 Vedas as such. Of course, what we're doing doesn't conflict with the 4 Vedas, but it's developed. It's what we focus on, these literatures particularly, and mantras are developed. They're further developed beyond the scope of the 4 Vedas. Like Srimad Bhagavatam is beyond the 4 Vedas. It's superior to the 4 Vedas, considerably superior actually, because the 4 Vedas, the great majority is karma kandya, just how to go to heavenly planets and enjoy life, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, literally. So Krishna consciousness, of course, is beyond all of that. In fact, Srimad Bhagavatam, the second verse says that this Srimad Bhagavatam begins by completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, and it establishes only the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all, means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, our relationship with Him, and the process for re-entering our relationship with Him. Anyway, I don't want to go into this too much. I mean, it's the subject that if we ever get a chance to do a seminar on Tattva Sandarbha of Srila Jiva Goswami, we go into all these things in detail. But here we're just touching on it. So the Om is what is called a Bij mantra. It's a Bij mantra, Bij meaning seed. Even in current day Hindi, Bij means seed. So it's a seed mantra from which the actual mantra develops, or it's a stepping stone for stepping into the mantra, but it's not necessarily part of what the mantra is saying, because these mantras are statements. Hare Krishna Mahamantra is a statement. It's not just a collection of words. Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Caitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Right, ho. So yeah, like when we chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the statement, which is, I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, who's Krishna, that's complete without the Om. The Om is sort of superfluous in terms of the actual, what we're saying. So here, this is the situation here. And the invocation, as I said, is kind of related to a blessing, you could say, or at least it's like a stepping stone into the subject matter. And that's what this is here. Yes, complete. The completeness of the absolute truth, and thereby the completeness of everything else, which is connected with the absolute truth properly. Things which are improperly connected, or what to speak of disconnected, but even just, sort of partially connected, they're not complete. They'll never be complete. They may look complete. People may think they're complete, but they can't be. Like Prabhupada mentioned in the purport we read there, that humanity in so many ways is trying to make a complete way of life. Peace and prosperity and, enough of everything, to live without conflict and all this sort of thing. But they're trying to do it independent from the Supreme Lord, or at best, partially connected, just partially connected, like demigod worship in and of itself as a form of religion. It's incomplete. It is incomplete. It's pious. It's better than just being a gross materialist and just going for it and trying to get as much money as you can by some means or other, and then enjoying life. Demigod worship is better, but it's incomplete because it doesn't recognize the Supreme Lord. And after you've been through whatever result you got from your demigod worship, you'll fall back down onto this level, human level, where you'll incur karma again. Right, so let's go through step by step. We mentioned a bit about Om, the invocation itself. And I mentioned that complete, the term complete, either directly or indirectly, features 8 times in the verse. In the purport, we have counted. It's there directly or indirectly 35 times. So let's hope we get the message. If you don't get the message after that, you've failed, or at least you're not there yet. So let's go through step by step. The subject matter, of course, is completeness and incompleteness, mainly just completeness, with sort of reference to incompleteness, just a little bit. But it's basically completeness. And in the first 3 paragraphs, if we were doing this as a real seminar, everyone would have the book and pens and, notebooks and so on, and we would be in student mode, not just, that sort of mode. We would be in education mode. But the first 3 paragraphs, in the first 3 paragraphs of the purport, Srila Prabhupada addresses the concept of completeness in regard to three specific things. 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph is addressing one type of completeness as distinct from others. So the first paragraph was talking about the completeness of the absolute truth in the sense that there are 3 aspects of the absolute truth: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. And Prabhupada mentioned, if you recall, I did make a point of pointing these things out. Sat Chit Ananda. Sat is eternity. Chit is knowledge or consciousness, and Ananda means bliss. So, Prabhupada was saying, if you realize Brahman, you're realizing the Sat, the eternity aspect. If you realize the Supersoul Paramatma within the heart and within every atom, then you're realizing the Sat aspect also, again, but the Chit aspect too, of consciousness, knowledge, of that the Supersoul exists. He's there. He's real. And this world is real under the control of the Supersoul. But when you realize the Bhagavan feature, the actual Supreme Personality of Godhead in totality, then you're realizing all 3, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Within Brahman, you don't get the bliss or the knowledge. With Paramatma realization, you don't get the bliss, because the Supersoul is just managing what you deserve to get in terms of your karma. That's all. Karma is not a very blissful program. Yeah, but you realize all 3 when you realize the Supreme Lord, Krishna. Therefore, and this is a really important point to note, is that when we talk about Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, they are, you could say, cumulative. They're not 3 separate aspects of something called the absolute truth, which is sort of something else or some bigger thing. No, Sat, Brahman, is included in Paramatma, and Brahman and Paramatma are included in Bhagavan. So when you realize Bhagavan, Krishna, you automatically realize Brahman and Paramatma because they're part of him. And therefore it's said, interesting little idea, that Brahman realization, what is Brahman realization? It is realization of Krishna minus his personality, and personality includes his pastimes and like that. You're realizing Krishna minus his personality and minus his form. But you're realizing Krishna. You're not realizing another thing, a different thing. You're realizing Krishna, but minus his form, minus his personality. When you realize Paramatma, you're realizing Krishna with the form, because Paramatma definitely has form, but minus his personality, minus the bliss. But when you realize Krishna, then you get all of them. I hope you get that point. So therefore the absolute truth is complete in these 3 features. Yeah. And therefore there's a famous verse in the earlier parts of the Bhagavatam Vedanti tat-tatva vedas tatvam yajnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabjate. So Vedanti tat-tatva vedas, the sort of the people who know, they realize this advaya gyan. Vedanti tat-tatva vedas Tattvam yajnanam advayam. Advaya means not two. It's a way of saying one. Yeah. Actually, this absolute truth is one. Advaya, not two. One. But realized in three features. So this is the point Prabhupada makes in the first paragraph. And it is just, it really is an important point in Krishna consciousness, like sort of foundational Krishna consciousness. So then Prabhupada goes into exploring a few points briefly in the first paragraph, but the other point which he explores, which is again very important, he quotes, it's the first line of the famous first verse of Brahma Samhita. Actually it's the second line. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Prabhupada particularly pointed out the term Vigraha means form. Yeah. That the absolute truth, Satchitananda, but it has form. It's not formless. So therefore, from the outset, we can understand that the impersonal perspective, particularly the Mayavad perspective, which is one type of impersonalism, but the most prominent, it's not correct. It's inaccurate, and thereby it's misleading, because it's focusing on the Brahman aspect. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya is their slogan. Brahma Satyam, Brahman is truth. Jagan, this world, Mithya means it's false. So their understanding is what? Because they're focused on Brahman, it's what? Say incomplete. You're right. Yes. It's incomplete. It's incomplete. So, it's just missing the point. And therefore, Prabhupada, and not just Prabhupada by any means, but our acharyas, they really point out that impersonalism is really wrong and dangerous even, misleading, destructive. So yes, so Vigraha, the absolute is not formless. If the absolute truth was formless, didn't have a form, no form, the absolute truth would be less than his or its, or however you might refer to the absolute truth, let's say his. The absolute truth would be less than his creation, because his creation has form. We all have forms. If he's not up to that level like us, no, it can't be, isn't it? It just can't be. If he is the absolute truth, but he doesn't have form, it means that he's not the absolute truth, actually. There's something beyond him, which, where the form side of things is. And that's the absolute truth. And similarly with personality, similarly with relationships, Similarly with emotions. If the absolute truth is just too big to have, too complete, too big to have those things, the absolute truth is less than us. And therefore what we're referring to as the absolute truth is not the absolute truth. You know, this term absolute truth, Prabhupada uses the term frequently. It's kind of, a manner of speaking, really. Actually, we're talking of Krishna. It's just another way of referring to Krishna. He is the absolute truth. Yeah. It's more like just a philosophical concept to help us grasp who and what Krishna is. So on to the second paragraph of the purport. And here Srila Prabhupada addresses a second aspect of completeness. And that is that the potencies of the Lord are complete. The potencies of the Lord are complete. So, which Prabhupada explains, they're immense. The potencies are immense. There are three main potencies. There's the spiritual potency, the marginal potency, that's us, and the inferior potency, the material potency. Each one of them has subdivisions, particularly the spiritual potency has subdivisions of different types. Yeah, many different subdivisions. So, but even though they're so immense, they're complete. And therefore Prabhupada makes the point, and gosh, it's such an important point. Therefore, this material world is also complete. And therefore, we'll find when we get to the second verse, not the next verse, because the next verse is the first verse. This is the invocation. But the second verse makes the point that if you understand this whole thing about completeness and Ishavasyam idam sarvam, the Ishavasya principle, everything's controlled and owned by the Lord, and He has, divided it all up. So every living entity has their supply, which they need. Yeah. So in the second verse, it's pointed out that if you can recognize that and live like that, according to the Ishavasya principle, which is based on this Om Purnam, completeness principle, then the second verse says, you can live forever in this material world. You'll have to take birth after birth, because, that's how it works with material bodies. But if you are fixed in that consciousness, then in your next life you'll go into the same situation. And you can just go on living indefinitely if you live according to that principle. And you'll never have to just get out of this world, get salvation or liberation. And, it's just too much trouble in the material world. If you're living in that way, you can just live and just carry on and on, literally forever. So anyway, this material world is complete because whatever is produced of the complete whole is complete in itself. Yeah. As long as you don't start separating it from itself. So And Prabhupada gives the example that this world is composed of 24 elements. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These are energies. These are some of the different material energies. And then there's others. There's the modes, there's the senses, the organs of the senses, the functions of the organs of the senses. These are all different potencies of the material nature. And there's a lot more too. So, Prabhupada makes the point, this world is composed of 24 elements, and they produce everything needed for life in this universe completely. Yeah. And Prabhupada says, no other unit in the universe, that's us, need make an extraneous effort to try to maintain the universe or even itself. I mean, themselves. There's a time scale. When the time scale is what? Completed. Then, because it's got a fixed time, a completed time, then everything's wound up, but then it's manifest again, completely. So like this, yes, there is complete facility because Purnam, this is from a class by Prabhupada on this invocation, because Purnam, whatever is done by Krishna, that is complete. You cannot find out any flaw in it. Yes, his potencies are so complete. So therefore you cannot say, oh, why God has done this. Just sometimes, like foolish people, they say, why God has made someone poor and somebody rich. This is most foolish question. If God has done it, it is complete. There's no flaw in it. Why is the person poor? Because of their karma. Basically means they made themselves poor. And why is someone rich? Because they made themselves rich due to their previous activities. But there's no flaw in it. It is complete execution of the law. So the third paragraph is the third feature of completeness. And what does this mean? It means that Lord Krishna has given complete facilities for everyone to come to him. There is no shortage of facility to come back to him. The only shortage is shortage in us, shortage of knowledge, shortage of acceptance, shortage of endeavor, effort, all these things. Otherwise, Prabhupada says here in this third paragraph, all forms of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete whole. The human form of life is a complete manifestation of the consciousness of the living being. So, if we don't realize our completeness in relation to the complete whole, we fall completely into the cycle of birth and death. Completely. Yeah. So this is the third feature of completeness, complete facility for going back to Godhead. That's all this material world is. You know, in a certain sense, you can say it's an opportunity to enjoy. In another sense, you can say it's a prison house. But actually what it is, it's a facility for going back to Godhead, and like a complete facility for completely going completely back to Godhead. So, but when people try to exploit material nature, that's just everybody, every single living entity wandering around who's not a devotee yet. In one way or another, directly or indirectly, they are trying to exploit material nature. In this way, they're making everything disjointed, and they're creating incomplete situations for themselves. And Prabhupada gives an example. Just like in a big machine, there's a small screw. So the complete facility, the completeness of the small screw is to be fitted in a particular place in the machine. If it's not, somehow the screw falls out of the machine. The screw becomes incomplete. It's just, nothing in particular. And Prabhupada gave the example, do you remember, of the hand? The hand, when it's part of the body, yes, it can do so many things because that's its complete position. But if you separate the hand, literally, actually cut your hand off, then it's hopeless, basically hopeless. It's certainly not complete at all. Just like, there's this funny little sort of saying in Western life, can you lend me a hand? Or could you give a hand? Yeah, these lend or give a hand. And if you say, oh, yeah, sure, whack, yeah, take it. Whew. It's useless. Its entity as a hand, it becomes a non-entity. As a hand, it becomes a non-entity. Yeah. So Prabhupada's so expert, it's incredible actually, at making things clear. Then the fourth paragraph, it's a sort of, the same subject. Well, actually, Prabhupada gives the example of the hand in the fourth paragraph. And if we make artificial efforts to become complete, then they are simply doomed to failure. And that's all there is to it. They're just simply doomed to complete failure. And that's why that second verse of the Bhagavatam, Dharma projata kaitavotra paramo nimatsaranam satam, says that any type of religious activity which is materially motivated, and that's religious activity. What to speak of activity which has got nothing to do with religion and it's materially motivated. The Bhagavatam begins by completely rejecting them, totally. Just like there's another verse in the early part of the Bhagavatam which finishes, what is it? Shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama eva hi kevalam is the last line. And basically the verse is saying that anything you do according to Varnashram, Dharma, according to Dharma, which does not connect you with the Supreme Lord, it's Shrama eva hi kevalam. Shrama basically means a waste of time. Eva means definitely. He means certainly, and kevalam means only. Really, these are just simple literal translations of those words. I mean, that's pretty complete, isn't it? A complete rejection. You could hardly reject things more than that. It's definitely, certainly, only a waste of time. Haribol, there you go. And Prabhupada says in the 4th paragraph, similarly, living beings are part and parcel of the complete whole. And if they are severed from the complete whole, means, just trying to live independently. That's what severed means here. Then the illusory representation of completeness cannot fully satisfy them. And then the last paragraph, Prabhupada makes the point, the only way for us to become complete in ourselves is for us to engage in the devotional service of the complete whole. Anything else, no matter what, will only be incomplete. And Prabhupada completes the purport. All services in this world, whether social, political, communal, international, or even interplanetary, will remain incomplete until they're dovetailed with the complete whole. When everything is dovetailed with the complete whole, the attached parts and parcels also become complete in themselves. They don't become complete like they become God, but in and of themselves, as far as they exist, as units, as entities, they become complete. Complete people, for example. Yeah. So there you go, devotees. That's some thoughts on the invocation. Here, this is now from Prabhupada. Let me just read a few lines from Prabhupada. I think it's from Prabhupada. Why do you say that God should have created in a certain way? What he has created is already perfect. Because you are perfect, you have the independence to misuse. That's part of being perfect, that you have some independence. You are not a dead stone. That is perfection. You can go anywhere. You can go to Vaikuntha. You can go to the higher planets. You can go to hell. When you go to hell, it is your choice. God has given you all perfection. Purnam, Purnamidam, Purnam Adaya, Purnat Purnam Udachate. Everything is complete, perfect. And because you are perfect, you have independence. But by misusing that independence, you become imperfect. Again, properly reviving your independence, you can become perfect, although you're imperfect now. That is the Krishna consciousness movement. The Krishna consciousness movement means raising the imperfect to the perfect platform. Hare Krishna. Any comment or question? Yes, Mother Ranga Devi. Just a sec.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Maharaj, I have a question about, I need to know what's the difference between a Samhita, a Paribhasa Sutra, a Mula Mantra.
Yeah, no, they're very different. A Samhita, particularly, is the first not verse, it's like a book. It may not be a big book, like Isopanisad only like whatever it is, 15 or 16 or 18 verses. It's a small book, but it's a book. So the Samhita, traditionally a Vedic Samhita, is describing a heavenly situation which can be achieved. Yeah, a situation of higher enjoyment, usually a planet, a heavenly planet. Then the Brahmana describes the particular sacrifice or religious activity you do to go there. The Aranyaka describes in more certain details that process, and the Upanishad explains the philosophical import of it all. But then, what was it? Mula mantra. Yeah, mula means root. A mula mantra means a root mantra. It's like a very fundamental mantra. Is different, a little different from a bij mantra. Bij mantra is a seed mantra from which a mantra, sort of develops or grows. But a mula mantra is a root mantra, like, a very fundamental mantra about some subject. Like Srila Prabhupada makes the point that Bhagavatam 5.18.8, you know that one? Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, Namo Tejas Tejase Aver Bhava. That one. Prabhupada says, this is a Nrsingadev Mula mantra. It's like a very fundamental, foundational mantra in regard to Lord Nrsingadev. And there was another one, a Paribhas Sutra. Yeah, Paribhas Sutra, that's very important. In Bhagavatam 1.3.28 is the Paribhas Sutra. Paribhas Sutra means the sutra, the verse, the statement which defines the subject matter of a book or of a something, some composition. Yeah. Like in the case of, and therefore Jiva Goswami, he explains this actually. He explains what's a Paribhas Sutra in some detail, that a Paribhas Sutra rules the book. It governs the book. In that, when you read the book, whatever you read in the book, you have to understand it in relation to the Paribhas Sutra. Yeah. And like, for example, in the Bhagavatam, there are some verses which talk about Brahman as the absolute truth is, formless or something. There are verses like that. But we have to understand this is talking about the Brahman aspect of Krishna. His Brahman feature. And so therefore, when you, in a book, like Srimad Bhagavatam particularly, when you come across a verse which is difficult, it's difficult to understand, you got to connect it back up to the Paribhas Sutra. Rather than just see it independent, because, the Mayavadis have done commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam, that it's about Brahman, it's not about Krishna. Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Maharaj. Your class was completely perfect.
Well, that's completely nice to hear. Oh, okay. Jai, Prabhu? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. It was very succinct and precise, and we should do this every Sunday. It is intellectual gymnastics for us. You mentioned about the absolute truth in 3 features. That means for the realization of those Brahman, that is absolute for them. The Brahman feature.
Yeah, but it's not complete.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of the understanding of the complete.
Yeah. So it doesn't give a complete result. So patant yada, they fall down again.
Yes.
But when you realize Krishna, you automatically realize the super soul and Brahman. Yeah, because they're parts of Krishna. It's not that you begin with Brahman, when you got that down, then you go on Paramatma. When you got that, then you can approach Krishna. Now the example is given of the sun, that when the sun rises, you see the sun, but you see the world too. You don't just see the sun, you see the whole world, and you see you. Yeah. So, like that, when you realize Krishna, you see Krishna and Paramatma and Brahman. Have I sort of deviated you from your line of thought?
Thank you. It was clarified. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
I was just thinking of one poem, my very favorite poem by William Blake.
Oh.
He's questioning the Creator, and it goes like, I'm sure you may be familiar with it. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night. What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry?
Right.
Did he who make the lamb make thee? The completeness in all of these creations,
Right.
this author is glorifying the Creator like that.
These people, like Blake, and others, they get it sometimes a bit, but it's not complete. Even Led Zeppelin, someone was telling me how Stairway to Heaven, I mean, you may never have heard of it, which is good. It's such a good song. But at the end he sings, when all is one and one is all, to be a rock and not to roll. And what do you say? Haribol. They got something, not too much. Hare Krishna.
His Holiness Bhakti Caitanya Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you.